Dr. May, just very briefly outline the 2 or 3 major points that you're trying to hit on in your campaign for Congress.
Absolutely. Thank you for asking, Robert. To me, our national security is a key issue because our government, our federal government, was put together for one purpose, not to take care of us, but to protect us. And in that protection, we need 3 things. We need to get back to our fundamental Judeo-Christian principles. We've gotten God out of our schools, out of our government, out of our public lives, and that has not worked. Crime has gone up, violence has gone up, people aren't happy, people are going on to welfare. We have to get our country back together. And getting us back on God's side, getting the 10 Commandments back in the public places, getting the Bible back, and particularly getting Bible and God back into our military chaplaincy so that our men and women who are going out there and fighting have a chance to worship and to have the spiritual strength that they need going into battle. Second part of that is our military strength. That means that we have a military second to none. Not for the purpose of conquering other people, Robert, but for the purpose of saying to other people, we will stand up for principles. If you go to China, if you go and start taking land away from the Philippines and Japan and South Korea, we're going to come in there and we're going to protect our friends. You stay where you are. Let's be friends. We've got a big stick. Don't mess with us. And that is the best way to prevent war. We got into World War II because we cut our military down. We were number 17 in the world when World War II started, right behind Czechoslovakia. Unfortunately, we had a good leader, military person who understood military, FDR, who built our military up fast enough. But we need a good military, we need good protection, we need a good missile shield, and we need to take care of our veterans. If we don't take care of our veterans, we're not going to attract good men and women to our military, Robert, because people aren't going to want to come in if they're not taken care of. If our veterans need help, they need to be able to go to a veterans facility or another medical facility. If they need urgent help, they need to be able to get the help right away. That day, not the next day, not the next week, not the next month. And the third, going along with our national security, agriculture, production of food and fiber, that is part of national security. It's not just commodity production. It is part of our national security. It needs to be considered such. Energy production needs to be considered a part of our national security. Good health care, having accessible, reasonably priced health care, having health insurance policies that are logical and available to the people are essential to the national security and the well-being of this nation. A good educational system is important. Here, the federal government has been the problem rather than the solution. And welfare, education, health care management, health care insurance, we need to get these out of the hands of the federal government and the people in Congress who have their fingers in way, way too many pies, and get this back to the states, to the people, and to the communities where it belongs. Along with that is getting our economy back in order. That means cutting regulations, cutting taxes. In my opinion, future Congresses, if they're going to pass bills, it should be very, very limited. And they should be passing bills to cut regulations and to cut sections of the federal government we don't need. Our Congresses need to be involved in reducing the reach of the federal government. As I said, the federal government is there to protect us, not to direct us, not to harass us, not to tell us what we can eat or how much water we can use for our shower or what kind of a vehicle we can drive or how much gas mileage we can get or what we can do and what we can't do. Our federal government is there to protect us from our enemies, domestic and foreign. And as I said, we need to cut taxes, we need to cut regulations. We cut taxes, we're going to attract businesses. We have $2 or $3 trillion in money, income, that should be brought from overseas here. Robert, if we cut the taxes on that to 5 or 10%, that money would flow back. If we would cut capital gains, if we would cut the income tax on our businesses, which is now the highest in the world, it's ahead of Japan's, if we would cut that, the businesses from the world would come here because they know they have good workers. They know they have good people. They know they have integrity. And one of the things that we lead the world in is hard work and integrity. And one of the things that we have, that the rest of the world has problems with, is they don't have integrity. They've got corruption. They've got payment under the table. And you can't run a good business in China when you've got to deal with all of those problems. So we see a lot of the companies that have fled the United States for one reason or another are coming back, and we need to open the doors and welcome them back.
In the integrity, along with the integrity issue, you have initiated a lawsuit against a young woman whose attorney has accused you of sexual assault. How do you expect that to play in this campaign?
That situation, we just found out about this in the recent past. What apparently happened back in 2012, a person was making allegations against me at the 2012 Texas Republican Convention. This person wanted to be the lead delegate to the Republican National Convention. That didn't work out. Unknown to me, apparently the allegations continued. We weren't able to find out what these allegations really were. The person was not cooperative, so we had no choice but to file a legal suit. I think the greatest information you can find in this is that in our first hearing, her attorney filed a paper. And that paper will explain the situation very well as to what's going on. It tells about his client and what he sees that has been going on.
Do you see this as a distraction as the only candidate running for Congress with a current lawsuit within the legal system?
I'm going up to Washington to initiate lawsuits. My job up there is to challenge the government, to challenge people. When something isn't right, our legal system is there for the purpose of resolution of problems. So I look at this as simply showing I'm not afraid to stand up to anybody. I'm not afraid to stand up to anything. I don't sweep things under the rug. I address them. I'm going up there to Washington, and there's problems, and my Republican colleagues up there often just ignore them, put them under the rug because they don't want them to interfere because they're afraid they won't be reelected if they start addressing problems. Well, I'm going up there to address problems, to fix things, and to stand up. And as I said before, if you're interested in this case, the best information you're going to get on this case is going to the court and getting the filing from her attorney. That will put things in very, very good perspective. The other thing is, I would be very, very pleased if you would, if you have any further questions, sit down and talk with my attorney, Fernando Bustos. He's one of the finest Christian men and attorneys I've ever encountered. So I would greatly appreciate if that filing in the court does not address the problems that the questions you have, please go to also talk to my attorney. But I think that filing of her attorney will put things in very, very good perspective, and it'll give you a good understanding of where I'm coming from and that I'm a man of integrity, and I'm simply trying to solve the problem.
Are you saying that what her attorney said is true?
I'm not making any assertions as to what her attorney said or whatever. All I'm saying is he filed a paper, and I think this will give you some information. I'm not going to speak for her attorney or anybody else, and this is in litigation, so I'd rather not say anything more. All I'm saying is I told you what the bases were, told you to talk to my attorney, and I told you to take a look at the paper that's been filed.
As far as Congressional District 19, very large district in terms of geographic area, how are you going to reach out to not just the voters in Lubbock, but Abilene, Big Springs, Sweetwater as well?
We are, what we're doing right now, my campaign crew is covering the entire district, all 29 counties, in the next 3 weeks. I will be covering all of these counties with them in the first 3 weeks of December. That will be the second coverage of all 29 counties, going over to Graham, Breckenridge, and that whole area over there, over to Morton. It's a big place. It takes about 6 hours of driving time to get from Morton over to Breckenridge at good Texas speeds. So we're going to be covering that twice before the end of the calendar year. Once we get into February and January and February, that's going to be a lot directed by what people are having as interviews, as debates. I'm hoping we have a lot of debates. I'm hoping that we have debates over in Graham and Breckenridge and over in Morton and up in Muleshoe and Plainview and down in Snyder and Big Spring. I'm hoping that we have debates all over these areas, but we're going to be covering that area. We'll have at least 3 full coverages, organized 3 coverages of the entire area. It's important to get out there. The vote in the rural area is going to be double in this election what it was in the election 2 years ago. And the big issues out there, of course, are going to be agriculture, water, and our national security, what's going on in Washington. So there are a lot of issues out there. We want to make sure that we talk with the people. Particularly, Robert, I want to know what the people are thinking.